The big hand is in similar places all around the globe, and we have people from all around the globe. And it's good to get back together again after a 2 week hiatus. Um, and we have a program that I don't have to fill in today, which is good. That brings a smile to Mickey's face. Uh, and um, and so, I was going to introduce our speaker. We have from Augsburg, Germany,
Okay.
somebody who has been dancing since 1980. You take a break ever? Has been started calling 5 years after that. Now is called in Europe because he's from Europe, the U.S. and Japan. Does works with beginners through C2. Has done some recording. Works with the staff of the Bavarian Caller School. Is a Caller Lab member on various committees, including vice chairman of the Basic Mainstream Committee, and currently running for the Board of Governors. So we have today a gentleman whose legal name is Michael Braithwaite, but to us in square dancing, he's known as Mickey. Let's have a big hand for Mickey from Germany. Mickey, it's all yours.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. Very exciting to be on the show here. And what Don forgot to say is that Al Stevens and he were the first coaches in the color school I visited years and years ago.
Oh,
So whenever you like what is being presented and how I developed, it's all to their credit. And if you don't like, no,
It's their fault.
it's all their fault.
yeah.
Thanks, Mickey.
Um, our topic today is singing calls, and I guess everybody knows about singing calls, and everybody has heard a lot about singing calls. Um, Maybe my approach can help a little bit. Something you probably already know. Some things may have a little aha effect. Um, First of all, general thoughts I've had there. There are so many aspects we have to deal with as scholars. Um, there are so many balls we have to juggle up in the air, and the first one to fall down is the smiling one, right? And but you're never closer to an entertainer or a singer when entering the stage when you do a singing call. No matter how good you do the hoedowns and the pattern, but if we have a tip, which is a pattern and a singing call, then the singing call is the thing where you entertain and never you are closer to the dancing part of the activity. That does not mean that on the hoedowns and patterns we don't have to step to the music and should call and to the beat and make a danceable sensation. But on a singing call, it definitely is the part with the singing, with getting emotions touched. Um, we have the choreo, and we have the emotional part, the singing, the entertaining, working with music, not just as a background, but really working with the music in order to make it a song. And we have two parts in the singing call which are important. The one is an emotional part and gets into the art, and this is the singing part. We have the choreo part, which is the intellectual type thing, which is the craft. We can learn how to call as a craft and move the dancers around. That is our job as scholars, as a matter of fact. But in order to make it a dance, so the people dance to the music, we have to sing, we have to, and if I say sing, it does not necessarily mean that you have to work like an opera singer. It means that you have to be in harmony with the music, with a musical phrase, with a theme. Um, it is that what we're looking for, that the whole thing, music and your voice, your singing, comes out as one harmonic, emotional, touching experience to the dancers. And if we can achieve that, then you're really close to an entertainer, to a singer, and then you can really please the crowd and make them cheer up and feel good and move even more, make them to the beat of the music and enjoy the song. This is going to be the dance sensation if you can combine both. And it will take a lot of work and practice. And we always got to remember that before we can do the art, oh, let's do it before the art, you must master the craft. There is no doubt about it. And this is nothing we can achieve overnight. And the dancer's experience, very much in a tip, is that the pattern, be it as enjoyable as it is and interesting, is always a kind of hard work to them. And if you work hard, then you want to be rewarded. So the singing call is the reward. And if you want to present a reward, you better make sure, if they worked hard before, that the reward is worth it. So this is where we're going uh, to the direction. We're gonna to passing those general thoughts on the singing call. We're gonna now go to a structure of a singing call. Then we're gonna have some hints, and then we're gonna touch some trouble spots working a singing call, and then we have some choreographic examples, which I would explain what's the idea behind of it, and kind of a you may want to think about the philosophy behind the action. So first, let me share the screen if I'm able to.
You should be able to.
Okay.
There we go. Perfect.
All right. Got the channels out. So if you take a look at the structure of a singing call, we usually have 7 parts in a singing call. In the modern singing calls, or those have been developed of the past, I would say, 50 years. Coming from the old time, a singing call may have only 4 parts, and there are some very old singing calls out there. They still have that, and you may have frames, dancing frames of 90, 80 beats, or 92, 96 beats, whatever. You got to be careful about that. But usually the modern singing calls I'm talking about, which has been released for the past, I would say, could it be 40, 50 years? Darn. That's where time goes. They usually have 7 sequences, or parts, as I would call it, with a length of 64 beats. Now, very many of us, and even, would like to have a singing call out. And then we have to arrange a song, and we got to be careful about how we do that. And then we get in touch with musicians, because we have to rearrange the original song. We hardly can use any karaoke type thing, or use the instrumental of a pop song, or a song out there. And it needs to be rearranged. And in order to fit those frames we're using, and the standard we're using, and then we start to talk with the musicians, and they do not understand a clue what we're talking about. Because when we talk in square dancing, we talk the length of a musical phrase or our parts. We talk in beats. Usually we have 64 beats, which is, as you all know, about 2 times a grand square going forth and back. Those is the length we have, as well in the opener, middle break, and closer, as well in the figure 1 to 4. Musicians, they talk in bars, and depending on the beat we have, if it's a 4/4 of a bar or a 2/4 of a bar, we either have 16 or 32 bars. So what we have to do as Callers, when we want to talk with musicians, we have to translate our language into their language so they understand. Um, so this is just for those who are planning to do singing calls and what's the difference between bars and beats. What we all talk about is beats per minute. That is also for the musicians. And usually in square dancing nowadays we work around, I would say 124 up to 128. Some people go up to 132, which is really fast, I think. Depending on a dance we're calling for hours and hours. We do not want to wear out, have the dancers with worn out shoes and tire out. We want them at the end of the dance to really have the peak. So let's get to the structure of the singing calls. Usually we have a small intro. This could be musical interlude, um, or it could be something where you sing a little bit. Like one example where we sing a little bit with an interlude, we can either let the music play or we can sing with it. Is Royal Records American Pie, where we start with a long, long time ago at the beginning, and then we start with the opener. Um, Very often we just use the music. Now, in some singing calls I have seen already in the past, you have a whole grand square they use, or sometimes even talking a little bit about a topic or about the song, um, trying to get as close to the original song as possible. So we have seven parts, and I'm talking about parts. I'm not talking about the beginning, the musical interlude or whatever, or introduction. Or at the ending, we do have a tag, which could be instrumental, or we just are singing the tagline again. Depends on the song. Also, that tag could be grand square length where we sing the lyrics of the original song again. And we got to be careful because usually, and got to make the dancers aware, on the end, the last grand square we do is only most the time halfway through. But there is no rule without an exception. So there are singing calls out there where you have a full grand square going forth and back. I'm not talking about the closer. I'm talking about the very end of the song. Sometimes we have a fade out as well. You know. So, but I'm not talking about parts about the intro or about the tag. When I talk about parts, I'm talking about the seven parts where we build up the choreo and where we move the dancers. And the first, the fourth, and the seventh part are calls, are parts where we work kind of in a circle-like type thing. As you can see, we have usually circle, grand square, Alamo ring, four ladies chain, alamandars, and it's where we do not have any corner progression. It is where we get the same person back we start with in that routine. Now, on the figures, which is part two, three, or five, and six, we have a progression. In 90%, in our case, it is a corner progression we do have. But we also have some choreo where we can have some right hand lady progression, which is pretty seldom. And sometimes it can confuse the dancers. In very old singing calls, you may get like Kellogg's type thing or Gren or really old type thing. There may be even some figures where we do not change the partner. This is pretty much old style type thing. And those are usually fixed and written routines, which were the choreo was developed towards the music. Now, nowadays, I would say after the 70s and 80s, the last decade, a century, when we start to kind of come up with the programs, we can play with the choreo and adjust the choreo to the level we are progressing with our class or with our programs we call it, be it basic or SSD or whatever. We always have a limited number of calls and we can use them. And we got to figure out a figure, a combination of calls which have a corner progression and which fit into that 64 beat frame. So, haven't talked about the structure. Are there any questions so far about the structure of a singing call? Does everybody understands that? In the content, this is just examples to make it clear what I'm talking about. The sequence is clear. It's the order. The beats, 64 beats. It's the length. It has nothing to do with the timing or with the speed or whatever. It is the length of our dancing frame. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. Well, we go on.
Nikki, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I couldn't help but think when you were talking musicians talk in bars, a lot of callers talk in bars after the dance also.
That's one thing we have in common.
Sorry
Sometimes we talk about bars in bars.
sorry about that. Go ahead.
Okay. Usually, the figure 1 and 2 are used for the heads, and the figure 3 and 4 we usually start with the sides. Now, it is possible that we alternate the figures between heads and sides, but if we do so, like we have the first two figures, we go with heads, heads, or we have sides. Now, if we go with heads and then sides, we have to make sure that the third figure we call after the middle break, which would be in part 5, we start again with the sides, which comes usual because after the middle break, the sides would be their turn anyway. But then we go with the heads at the ending. If you start with the sides, it would have to be sides, heads, heads, side. And this is an order for the ladies, so they get the same share. Because with the progression, a head lady becomes a side lady, and a side lady becomes a head lady. And if we do not do it this way, the ladies will never get into the first moving action. Are there any questions to this so far? Does everybody understand what I mean? I saw
I,
Don shaking his head. He understood.
I just want to be sure that people understand. Don't call, you shouldn't call what a lot of people do is heads, sides, because that way the head women get to do the same thing every time and the side women do it. That's what Mickey said, but again, heads, sides, heads is good. Both men and women get both parts. Heads, heads, sides is fine for the men, but the women don't get to experience both parts.
Right. Now there is oh, I'm getting to that a little bit later. Yeah. What I also encourage you to do is to try to build up the choreo like a musical theme. Now there is sometimes calling 4 times the same figure versus to have totally different figures in a singing call. I'm not so a fan of changing really much in a singing call. If we have a theme for the night or for the tip, I think we should stick with the theme and try to build that in within the singing calls so the dancers are rewarded for the work and the exercise and workshop and learning the new call or the emphasis call that we did. Sometimes I call 4 times the same figure. It depends. It's a choice I make on the spot or when programming. So I can, you know, this is up to your own decision. This is the art. Yeah, this is your decision you make. You got to carry it. You get the applause, the credit. But on the other hand, if there are little adjustments within the choreo, I like that very much because then you can more or less kind of build up a tension within the singing call and kind of a storytelling, just like the real song does. every musical song, if it's good, builds up some kind of tension, and you don't have the same notes every time and the same musical phrase or whatever. It's interesting. You have bridges, you have some kind of excitement in there, and then you have the resolving. And I think we can do that as well with the choreo and try to put that in a singing call. You had a question, Don? So, okay. That's one thing. That's the artistic type thing we're using. Be adjustable with your choreo and respond to the floor. Now, that means, and we're going to see that a little bit later with the examples, that we should try to build our choreo the way that if there is a problem on the floor, we can very much and very fast adjust. Either is it a timing problem, that they're too slow, that we have packed too much choreo in there, and then we should have parts in our choreo which we can leave out in order to give the dancers more time to successfully finish the main theme we're featuring, focusing. The simplest thing is always to leave a do side do out if we do not need it for the choreo. There may be other components you could leave out. It depends on the routine you have set in that figure. A very important thing, I think, is to listen to the music of the song you're using of your singing call. Not only use the call side and try to imitate the caller. It is good to research, yeah. But on the other hand, you have to be yourself. And if you do not listen to the pure instrumental, you may gonna lose a lot of very nice instrumentalization, excitement, which the music could help you to carry the song and sell it. I have one example which to me really popped out years and years ago, and there are many more. But one I think is I just call the call, hits or side square through, and then I just shut up and let the music play, and is ready for the times to get better. It's on Rhythm Records, and that music part after the break, it's just different from all the other figures, and it's really nice to hear. And if you have a nice flowing choreo, and it's just goose pimples if I just think about it now and talk about it. If anybody has a musical feeling on the dance floor, they will appreciate that, definitely. And you can do that with many, many other songs that have been out there. Just listen to the music. Sometimes there are different lead instruments using the fillers, and you may want to have a mandolin or whatever, a violin. Just take the lead, and you just call kind of more or less cue whatever you do. And whenever the instrument is done, we get into swing and promenade. Then we come back and sing. We should not interfere with our voice with the music, but we should work with the music. Not the music should only sound good and you should sound good. The whole action, both of you, should sound as one song, as one delivered, as you were on stage with a musician. It is tough, it is hard, and you need to know your songs and your music. Sometimes there are two different musical phrases, and very often it is that you have in the opener, the middle break, and in the ending, in parts 1, 4, and 7, you have one musical phrase, and in the other parts, you will have the other musical phrase. One example is Almost Heaven, West Country Roads, West Virginia, right? It's different from the parts in the figures to the open and middle break. And what you can do is very often after the middle break, like have sides face grand square, which is you got the sides anywhere, and then sing original songs for the whole tune of the grand square. And then we need our corner progression, and we could call a square through four for the sights to swing the corner, or, you know, touch a quarter boy run. And you have something different in there because it is different in the song. You may have on that spot a different instrumentalization, and you can work with the choreo as well and get as close to the song as it is possible with a square dance singing call. And you will see the dancers will appreciate that. I even like that, like doing it on American Pie, which is on Royal Records. When in the middle part it says, you know, you're in love with him. We saw you dancing in the gym. You both picked up your shoes. It's totally different. It's a second musical phrase we have in there, or musical theme, as you want to call it. And you can sing that, and it gets very close to the original song. And there are many, many singing calls out there who have that. Now, in some other singing calls, you got to be careful because, especially the modern ones, the new ones coming out, you may have a different opener, middle break, or ending. So you always got to know your song and be careful to practice that. And another thing is, if calling with another caller, or don't have your songs with you and say, "Oh, I've got that song, you can use it." Being on stage together, got to be careful. If it's a different version, it may sound totally different. The music may be built up totally different. It may be like not using the two different musical themes, or using them different way, and you're just used to your version. You're getting in big trouble. So you got to be careful when using music from somebody else. As long as it is legal, do not copy, right? Very important. But if you share the stage with someone, yeah, make sure that you know the song and the version of that song. The very important is, and this is pretty tough if we like singing. And as a matter of fact, singing brought me to Colin. I like singing, and that's my first steps to Colin. Went with singing, and then I picked up and very much like the intellectual part as well. But you got to know when to use what. And if we want to sing the song, we're always on beat, better art, and sing with the musical phrase and whatever. But then very often, you know, we cannot give the dancers the first beat to take the first step, which would be nice for them. And this is not negotiable, as I would say, so they can move to the music. So you have to find a way to deliver your call just ahead of time that the dancers can really start on beat number one. And then it makes a dance experience, a fun experience, and a musical experience for the dancers. And then they will move all on the same beat, and you will. It's just gonna be a nice experience in the hall if you see everybody moving simultaneously. So you gotta make sure that the dancers get the first beat. So some trouble spots. If we're using the same figure over and over, and we've been using the hits twice, and then we have the middle break, and you know, after using the same call routine twice, the dancers kind of get used to it. And if you would do that 4 or 5 times, you would not have to call it anymore. That just was run, and they always would be ahead of you. Now, when starting with the sides, it will feel totally different because they're taking the other part, they're stepping in the other way, they have another facing direction. We had a middle break where we had no changes with the partner. And so, very often, if they have that memorized and even in their subconscious, then it could be that they, you know, get carried away. And you may want to lose, you're going to lose that square. Yeah. So you got to be careful that very often, if there is a thing, an accident to happen, it's gonna happen in that part, number five, in the third figure. Adding to that, dancers, very many dancers, tend to get their original partner. Yeah. And usually, that original partner, at least one of them, is in your foursome where you're working with. But if we are in part five, you're not supposed to get your original partner yet. So what I tell the dancers, whenever you are there and you mess up, take anybody else but not your partner. Otherwise, you will never see him again. Okay? Now I had response from some dancers saying, "Oh, that's the way to do it." Now, to get rid of the partner, but this is not our goal, right? So, and we do not want to get involved in stuff like that. So this is one trouble spot you want to be careful with, and it usually happens really in that spot number five. Sometimes it is hard for callers if we have very complex calls and long calls in order to get a corner progression because we have to very fast get in, have a good get in, then we have to use the call, and then we have to try to get to the corner. So this is quite exciting and a task for us callers. And maybe this is because so many do not call singing calls in high levels. Now, this usually doesn't appear in the Plus program, but it really gets playing in A and higher. And hardly see any singing calls. And I guess that is one of the things that we're facing, that it's really tough after spin channings change the gears or whatever relay the humsty dumpsty to get to the corner and have a really nice flowing choreo and corner progression within that 64 beat frame. Okay, and this is where we limit it, yeah, in our singing call. And we don't even have to 64 beat all the way because we have to swing and promenade, we have a get in. So we're talking about very limited space we can work with those complex calls. Sometimes dancers have troubles with the singing calls, and especially sometimes high level dancers would not like to have singing calls because whenever you mess up, there is no way you can recover. I mean, you have to go home and start over zero and square your set really fast. And there is hardly any possibility for the caller because everything is timed out so well to give the dancers a chance to get back in or to correct something, which you can easily do in the hoedown because you can stop and give a chance and correct things. This cannot be done in a singing call. Yeah. Then another thing is when I grew up with Colin, and I had one caller, I think he was great. He said to me, "Mickey, if you really want to call and know your craft and see how good you are and get really tough, right? You got to side call your singing calls. Just call and get in, try to get out there, try to get the caller within the flame, make it sound good. And if you can do that with any call at any time, then you know how to call. This is nothing I recommend for singing calls on stage and doing it on festivals or whatever. As a matter of fact, the more you call and the longer you're in the activity and the more you gain experience, the less, more or less, you do call side call or whatever. It's all modules. And even using your experience, and if you play around and have variations added in there, it is always because you have the experience, but you always use modules more or less. So I rather have you do not go with inside calling with singing calls because you need to be able to know the whole song. It should sound like a song, and I doubt that very many could on the spot do that because whenever we have to hit a note, we got to be careful because it could be an O, it could be a swing through, it could be a do side O, it could be a run. We have different vocals we're going on when going on the singing, and if we have not practice and if we're not 100% sure of the music, then it's not going to sound good, right? So really practice your singing calls, know your song, And here we're coming to some choreographic examples.
Brian
First
had
of
a
all, let me
question there,
explain.
Mickey.
Yeah, Mel?
I think Brian had a question on what you were talking about there.
Okay, Brian?
Uh, Thanks, Mickey. I was just going to make a comment rather than a question. When you were talking about dancers messing up, sometimes what I do if I see a squares or several squares of having trouble with figures and they've screwed up part of the way through on a singing call, especially if it's happened before the middle break, then what I will do at the middle break is say 4 ladies chain across to original partner. Make sure you got original partner back. Now chain back to the guy that you should have been with. And then you can just continue on from there. And all the squares on the floor should be correct at that point.
Yeah, that's a good hint, Brian. Thank you. What I usually say, adding to that, is that in the middle break, if there something like this happens, I would say we all should be opposite. Girls, we all should be opposite from home. You got 2 seconds. So there's no discussion about whatever, and they really get over there fast. So and I don't care how they get there, but then, as you said, there should be on the right spot, and then we can easily start over again. And maybe if there is a whole breakdown or a lot of on the floor which they miss, you may want to rethink the choreo in the third and fourth figure. Yeah, but this
I was working with Tony Oxendine once, and I saw him do something that I thought was quite cute in a singing call. Some of the dancers had screwed up, and he said, "Everybody point at your original partner. Quick, swing them." And then continued on from there.
yeah, yeah. Yes, you know, it's all up to your creativity and to, especially always with the demand or the wish to have the dancers get the most success out of it. And, you know, if you can do that in an entertaining way, then it's cool, right? You know, sometimes a gimmick, you know, you should not overdo it. Yeah, whatever we do, it's always the dose makes the medicine or the poison. But like I've had Christmas songs or whatever I do, and square is just one square is walking around and doing, you know, I don't know. Sometimes I say they're my square dance laboratory. They're just working on new calls, and whenever they're done, I can, you know, I will. Are you done already? Have you a name already for it or whatever? Or I say, you know, a singing call, especially a singing call, interpreting, you know, life's situation, or yeah, that's where the music comes from, the dancing comes from, the old shamanin. That's how dancing and music developed. And then I say, you know, when doing a singing call, well, I got that square did the best on the searching for a home for the Holy Family, going from one place to the other. So, you know, always got to be careful when you take chokes and whatever and how to build it in there. But there's always a way of having an entertaining and a smiling face for everybody. That's very important. Okay. So getting to our first example is very simple routine. We all know that, and it's a head square through four. And then we work into a right hand star, which we have for everybody. We've got 2 stars turning, and then we come into the middle with the heads or sides, whoever started, getting in a left hand star in the middle. One time around, and we land right in front of the corner, facing the corner, yeah, facing the outside. Full around with the outside pair. One thing is right and left through, and swing through. And then we have a swing and promenade. Now you got to say this routine is really timed out well, and sometimes it is too much in there for the dancers. So you got to be careful. That right and left through and swing through, swing through. If everything needs to be perfect, the floor, the dancers, the speed, the beat of the music. If you have a musical instrumentalization which you hardly hear any beat, but you have a violin just going or a steel guitar going wow, whatever. They might just, take the steps and just trottle along and would not really work with the beat. It depends on how you can make the beat with the voice, calling with a syncopation or whatever. But if it's a cozy song, then you couldn't do it. So you got to be careful that they're on beat and they're moving, and sometimes you would have to say something or may have to rearrange the choreo. Now, the main thing we're working with was the square through four and have the stars right and left handed. And there's another problem coming up. If you say head square through four, make a right hand star with the outside one time around, come into the middle, make a left hand star, then sometimes, especially in the figures two, the head lady would go back in there, but she now is a side lady. So you got to be careful and make sure that the dancers really work around. That should have been, part in the teaching. In a hoedown, doesn't have to be right in within the tip, but maybe the tip before, so everybody knows how we work with the stars and when facing, and make sure that the ladies are always with the guy in this case. Sorry to say, Jolanda, but that's the way it is, and there is no way out of this. In this case, we have to work that way. But yeah, so this is our theme with the star right and star left. And then if we have the dancers doing pretty fine, we can do the right and left through and swing through, swing through. And then we have the swing and promenade that is there always. But we have other possibilities after the star working. One is a right and left through with a half sachet. And we could do the swing right ahead. If we miss timing or see the dancers or the whole floor is working too slow, then we can use that. If we have more time, we can do the pass through with a U-turn back. Or if sometimes we have, especially 50s, 60s music, oldies using, we could call pass through, face right, twice, swing. And, just doing the U-turn back on a spot, the one going right, the other going left, that doesn't look like choreo or like dancing. It's an effect, okay. But if we call face right twice and see them work just like that, other groups have to study months and hours in order to get that choreo. And we can do it just by calling it on the spot, in time, and see all the dancers of a whole hall move quarter-wise. And that looks really great. And it feels like dancing. Can be seen on the Color Lab convention when I did the singing call, where we had that. And it was fun. It's not just a U-turn back and, trying to get as fast through the dance. No, we're interpreting the music and we're really dancing and having a dancing action. It's not only running around in circles, but we do have a choreo which looks different, feels different, but it's got to be good. Other versions would be like do, si, do, and we can touch a quarter, scoot back, or we leave the do, si, do out and just have a touch a quarter and scoot back. If we have time, we do another scoot back. If we don't have the time, we just leave the second scoot back out. Those are things which I meant before when I said try to build up choreo where you can respond to the floor. Okay. Swing through, boys trade. Either you can do a swing if you stop right here, or you do a turn through and an allemand left, and then come back and swing and promenade, right? You may even could leave the swing out and just have turn through, allemand left, come back and promenade. See how it fits with the song. Maybe you want to have all endings, yeah, like the red calls in written in red. You want to change them, so we more or less start the same way, we end the same way, but in the middle, we have a little variation in there, which we can use, or we just use it 3 times, and after the middle break in that special figure number 5. Part 5, which is figure number 3, we can use a different one of those you want to pick. Of course, there are a lot of others you can add, as long as you keep within the time frame. And this, once again, I do not want to limit your creativity. But this is just an example of how we can play, and we also can adapt to different various levels. As you can see, I mean, we have a recycle in here. In the first thing, we're all working just with basic. Even I would say with basic, we
Yes.
could work with basic one if we do not use the swing through, but the half sachet and pass through with a U-turn back. So we can use this singing call figure very, very early, and then extend it the more we progress. Second example I have. And sometimes it's nice with a song if we can entertain the dancers with choreo, or with gimmick type thing, where we have, a little bit intellectual humor, sense of humor. Put that in there. Our get in again is a square through four in this one here, and we have a do side do mega wave for the center straight. There we go, and now the green part is the one which is our focus type thing. That is where we focus in the choreo on. The others is just to get in there. We go with a swing through, and I just put centers in there. Of course, you should call boys run because it's much easier. But to see what happens choreo-wise, it is always the centers and the leaders. As you can see in the second one, the centers are doing the run, and the leaders will do the turn back or the face right twice. Now, the first thing, this whole thing builds up as an entertaining figure in a singing call. Now, the first two I just would call like the hits: do side do make a wave, center straight, swing through, boys run, tag the line, girls, face right twice, have that little break in there, hesitation, and then swing and promenade, which is really nice. Now, on the second half of the singing call, that means in part 5, which is our third figure, we're not want to have the ladies always do the U-turn back. Now, we've built something up that the leaders turn around twice. So now this time we build it up the other way, and this doesn't make any problem that we now with the sides start this call twice, because everybody gets equal share anyway. So we have the sides square through 4 in this case, and then we call swing through and swing through again. What happens is the same thing on the do side do make a wave and center straight, that you and your corner will be on the other side, and you're coming back into a quadrant with attack the line action. But this time the girls run because they're in the center, and we tag the line, and this time we have the boys in the lead, and they face right. And of course they expect twice, swing and promenade. Now, we do not want to disappoint the dancers, so we give them the twice. Okay? So now we have built that up, that they expect twice, and they got their credit for it, but now you want to play. So on the last figure, which is part number 6, we call the same thing: swing through again, girls run, tag the line, boys, face right, but this time we only do it once. They expect the second time, but you say boy run just before they do the second face right. Around the girls, and girls face left, and we all promenade. Now, even if they miss the whole thing, or if they just carried away and do their thing, they fail, but still they have the right person to get into the promenade. And what you see, the glances is, oh, we made a mistake or something, but doesn't matter. We got the right one. Let's go home. And this is an entertaining type too. It's not picking on the dancers or playing got you, but it is an entertaining type thing that we can play with little elements and make it exciting. And then, of course, the ending needs to be a blast again. Whatever sides face grand square or whatever, four ladies promenade, should end up with the singing call then, using this routine. Just an idea. It's one I use very often, and I like it, and most important, the dancers like it. Here's my third example, and the last one for today. I've had that in a singing call, and I realized, and we always should watch our dance floor, what they're doing. And whenever they do a mistake, I will say it's no mistake, it's just collective creativity. We should ask why the dancers are doing that. And so let's first get to the part. The get in was it was a singing call I did on the recording, and I wanted to do something special and came out with this one here. It is a square through four. Do side do make a wave. What I usually don't like is do side do make a wave and swing through, because it always I don't like that. But if we do something else, then it makes sense to have a do side do make a wave, like the center straight and then spin the top. We get into a tidal formation. Then we hinge. We get into boxes. A walk and dodge. We will get into a trade by formation. All we're doing is staying in our own half, but it's still exciting. Face right twice, and then swing through, and then we swing and promenade. Now, what I realized that very often after the face right twice and the swing through, and I did not call swing through, but swing through, and it was not the corner standing in front of them, not for the one. I called swing through. But I realized that a lot of dancers wanted to do a swing on that part. So I made sure that the way I called, that they really did the swing through. And even though some were hesitating, I thought it would be interesting to call something they're suggesting. So I play this as a game. So the second time I call it, then I would comment like, we have alternative suggestions from the dancers. Maybe gonna communicate that into the program. And then while calling, I would say, something, I'll see what I can come up with. We're going to work something out for you. And then we come up in a third, which is part 5, with this routine, which is a right and left through. This will substitute the do side do make a wave and center straight. And then is the funny thing, we have the same action again. Spin the top, hinge, walk and dodge, face right twice. And now we are facing our corner in our quadrant. And we can call swing and promenade. And if you can comment that, like, thank you for your comments, dancers, your suggestion, it worked out. And see, I can call what you can dance. And, some kind of comments, whatever your humor is, you can sell that. And then either on the last sequence, you once again to do the same routine, or I go back to the first one, and let's see if you can dance what I call. And make sure that they will do that, right? And this is always exciting because beside of the singing, and that's the tough part, that all has to be within there without getting lost of the singing call, okay? This is all within the song, and hard to talk about in theory about it, but this takes a lot of practice, because you need to be so sure of your singing call that you can bubble in between and don't get lost, or don't lose the flavor of the singing call of the song. Okay.
Hey, Mickey,
Yes.
on this, are you replacing just the center straight? Are you keeping the do side do, or are you replacing the do side do
replace
and
is-
center straight?
Okay, now replace is everything within the green, within the bars here. And replaced is the red for the red and the green for the green, but the green is the same thing. So you may just want to
No,
substitute.
I was just looking at the timing, because your second one's only about 30 some odd beats. Your first one's about 40 some odd beats.
You're talking to the dancers, and it is different.
Hmm.
and they're standing there, and say, you have that little extra where you
Okay.
have to.
I was just wondering what you're doing with the fill in there.
Yeah, no,
So you're not only playing with choreography, but playing with their minds a little bit,
right,
and that's
right,
good. Okay.
yeah. Well, so much from my side. How's the time? We're doing good.
We are 5 minutes before the hour's up. A little longer than some of the presentations, leaving less time for the formal part of discussion, but plenty of time for discussion after that. Why don't we do the formal ending now and then start the discussion? So thank you guys for coming. Thank you. Can't remember the usual things. If you have to leave because you've only designated an hour, feel free to go without feeling guilty, but we want you to stay. and a big hand for Mickey for his presentation on singing calls.
Thank you.
Good stuff, Mickey. So hopefully you'll give Al and me credit because you liked what he said. Next week, and I usually don't announce the next week right away, but it's kind of related, but it's not. It's going to be doing stuff on music, not necessarily for singing calls. And Joe was, where's Joe? Oh, there you are, right in the middle of my screen, Joe. Joe Ubelacher, who was also a music teacher, is going to be talking about music and has got a lot to say. So next week is just part one, but we'll talk more about that next Thursday when I announce these. What else was I going to say? Nothing. It's time for discussion. We should, and I'm sorry that Brian, not Brian that just joined us, but Brian that just left us, Brian Hodgkiss, just before, if you watch the video, Brian, which I doubt you will, and just before you got on, we were talking about flooding in your area, and we're wondering if we've gotten as far north as where you are. I hope you guys are okay. Anyway, with that, discussion, questions, it's time for, not to put Mickey on the spot, but to have him expand or add your comments to it like Brian did at one point.
Just one thing, Don, I have sent you the PDF file, and you may want to forward it to Mark or anyone, or edit to the recording or to the people. So I have sent that already to you as an email.
If it ends up to me, then I will put it on, put a link to it in the comments to the video.
Okay.
Are you going to send it to Dan, or should I forward it to Dan?
It would be cool if you could forward it, because I don't have Dan's email then. But...
I need to make my email address more accessible.
The other thing I keep wanting to say is, guys, this was our 88th session. That's pretty amazing. I'm just blown away by that. Anyway, singing calls. What the
I
frosting,
see two
the
hands
frosting
up.
on the cake. Oh, right, they're electronic hands.
Theyrll and Joe.
Theyrll, go for it.
Thank you. Mickey, nice presentation. The last combination that you had there in the singing call with the spin the top, of course, for a lot of dancers, that would be challenging to do the spin the top without the swing through first. I like your first example better than your second, because it's set up for the movement by saying centers trade. They're automatically going to want to use that right hand again. So that sets it up for the flow. Enough said about all that. But earlier you mentioned giving the dancers the first beat to start their dancing. Of all the things that you covered, I think that might be one of the most important things in your singing call presentation. And the way I would suggest maybe the newer callers learn to do this, they all learn how to prompt the grand square, don't they? To give them time to start on the actual lyrics, side space, grand square, so they can sing the song from the first phrase of the song itself. They need to learn how to do that during the figures too, and then say head square through 4 with that same type of timing. Do it in that first measure or the last measure before the first measure starts of the next sequence. And that'll put them right in the time, and then the dancers can have that first footfall when they need it. Enough said?
I want to throw in just a second, Joe, but the second part you were talking about, Theyrll, was something called phrasing, and I'm wondering if we should do an in-depth session on phrasing at some point. There are pros and cons to it. On the first comment you made, and Mickey, it was on the spin the top, hinge, and walk and dodge. You were talking about going into there was a trouble spot. I would have pictured the trouble spot being the walk and dodge, that they might be doing a 3 walk, 1 dodge, that they had trouble seeing that they were in their own box. Just, again, depends on experience and total formation awareness. Joe, you have your hand up.
Yes. Okay. Again, very, very good presentation, Mickey. That's fantastic. Everything that Theyrll and Mel have said and Don certainly are well worth it. I think the biggest thing is that, we think this is really simple, the figures and whatnot, and the idea of calling it phrased, but it takes a lot of work. Now most of you on here are experienced, so it's like preaching to the choir. But you know what? There's always something for us old folks to get from each one of these presentations. Hopefully, if you have a chance and you haven't done it yet, go to Mel Wilkerson's session on voice. Again, another fantastic session, and it would help for when I do my session next week, because after watching both Mel's presentation and Mickey's, I won't have to cover an awful lot of more stuff if you've done your homework. Part of what next week we'll have too will be something about phrasing. But the biggest thing is that there's so much of this music stuff that as callers we don't need. We just plain don't need to know an awful lot of complex stuff. So what I have to offer you is what is it that you do need? What is helpful? So again, fantastic, Mickey. I got something out of it. I picked up a few more things for my next dance. Thank you. That's it. I'll take my hand down.
Well, since we have on that spin the top action, after the right and left through a little time left, adding to what Theyrll said, which I think is very helpful, we could add a do-si-do and then go into the spin the top action. But as a matter of fact, this last routine is quite challenging, and you should not just call it on the spot. You should know your floor, but you should do that anyway with any type of calling you're doing, right?
Could I say one more thing about that, the last routine with the spin the top? If you do that do-si-do to a wave, the main thing is centers trade and spin the top. What happens, you have the tidal wave, a single hinge and a boy's run puts you a right and left through away from your corner box and sequence that you want to swing. And you've got a lot of different ways you can do that right and left through. So it makes it what could be potentially a tough figure for the dancers and for some callers, as long as you know that it's a right and left through away from what you're looking for. You've got a plethora of different ways that you can do that little bit there that are quite simple for both the caller and the dancer. So knowing where you are, the single hinge, the walk and dodge, all of that just adds complexity. The single hinge is bad enough. Boys Run puts them into something very normal, and it puts them there quickly. And that's a big thing too. With that, I'll stop talking about spin the top. Thank you.
I guess I want to mention something that Mickey said and just reiterate it because it's a pet peeve of mine also. Head square through, do-si-do, make a wave, swing through. Don't say make a wave. The swing through, just do-si-do swing through. Don't say make a wave first. That creates a hesitation to the flow. It's totally unnecessary. It's legal, but it's unnecessary. And I was glad to see that it bugs you also, Nikki. So many people seem to do that on recorded singing calls. Theyrll?
That goes back to phrasing. It's the same as saying center zoom. You get locked into the 2 and the 4 beat phrasing for things. So do-si-do to an ocean wave. Naturally, you don't have to say it, but you get locked into these habitual type 2 and 4 beat phrases. It doesn't bother me that much to hear it. It really doesn't. It's unnecessary, I'll grant you that. I don't think it's such a bad thing. It's just part of what we do.
I frequently do the alternative that Mickey said, do-si-do to wave in the centers trade, just to give them some variety in dancing that they can easily do. But I see hesitations in the dancers when you say make a wave and then swing through. And you can phrase your wording so that it will still fit, I think. I do. Anyone else?
I just wanted to express my appreciation, especially for the discussion about theming the singing call figure. I always try to do my patter as something that leads up to whatever figure I'm going to use in the singing call, but that different people U-turning back, really, I appreciated that, and I need to think more about ways to do, oh yeah, something else in the singing call figure, but it's still the same kind of theme in the figure. It was good stuff. Yeah.
Dan, my people used to do an awful lot of practice the figure in the patter before the singing call, and to me it got to be kind of repetitious, and I liked when some and then I would teach the singing call figure in the patter of the tip before, so that they don't have it just one on top of the other, and you can work it in that way.
Yeah, mine is more of a don't do exactly the figure, or my thinking is don't do exactly the figure, but make sure that I have moved the dancers through all of the difficult parts from the same arrangement, and in which they will be doing it in the final one.
Well, again, that's the appropriate way, but consider doing it earlier.
I like that. Yeah, that. Thanks.
And maybe throw it in the tip before a little too, so it does.
Yeah, no, I like that tip before thing. That lets me build the evening further on when I have that luxury. Sometimes it's like, oh dear.
Now, especially taking that thing with the spin the top and the walk and Dutch and face right or whatever. Now, this is where you also have to work 2-3 tips ahead within the hoedown in order to correctly do the walk and Dutch. This is one session. And then have something. And then working with the spin the top. And then, building up the trust for the dancers. So it's just like a magician. Usually when you see the trick and everybody is astonished, that has happened long before, because he laid the path to misdirection and we lay the path to success. Already tips and tips before, and this fits within to programming. So if just taking a routine and just calling it whatever, I had callers call me and say, that doesn't work with me. How do you do it? So, well, you should have taken notice of the tips before. Yeah. So this is important. I will say that we are mountain guides, and we have to lead our dancers and make them able to complete the task we're asking them to. and they should enjoy when they do so. Now we have the pattern, as we said, the hard work, but still that can be fun as well. And it's the way we build it up. And then we give them credit in the singing calls. And sometimes it takes a whole evening or a workshop, maybe even to build something else so you can play something like this. I've seen a comment, this is European and an American type thing. No, I think the things I call in Europe, I want to call in the States. And I just got to make sure, if I call that, that they are able to do all the single parts, and not only the single parts, but the adding and the combination of those parts. And I have to try that in tips and tips before. And when I have the trust and see the dancers are doing it, then I can use it. Yeah. And it's hard work. It's nothing for me. Right?
Along the lines of the mountain guide thing, and I can see where living in Bavaria that came up in your mind. A lot of people talk about the dancers. It's not a competition. The 8 people are working together as a team. In reality, it's the 9 people are working together as a team. The 8 in the square and the caller with them.
Gotta be careful with the team because it's TEAM. And in German, some may go ahead and say toll ein anderer macht's, which means nice, somebody else will do it. So
I've been thinking of a
that was my reward to the bar.
I've been thinking along these lines that sometime we might have a program that one of our non-English speaking as a mother tongue, and that leaves out Gene because English is supposedly spoken in the UK and the Canadians. But what is it like teaching to dancers, some of whom understand English and some of them who only understand German or Swedish or Czech is a case that I remember having that problem with, where the ones that understand English can understand the helper words or the intonations, and the ones that only understand the mother tongue, it's a little different going to. But that's a whole new topic. But that's something that I was curious about at some point. Any other topics or takeoffs on the topic we're doing?
I did have a comment, but then Dan asked the question and you chiped in with the second part and Mickey answered the third part, so I don't have to ask.
Repetition's always good. Give us a summary of the question.
I'm looking forward to Joe's presentation next week. That sounds really good.
I agree. I'm looking forward to it.
No, I was commenting on when you're setting these things up, and it was me that put in that the difference between a European perspective and a North American perspective is looking at the figure in isolation. Whereas Mickey, I know I've worked and done sessions on that as well, where you build up to that choreography, you introduce the component parts and you build to that record, which is kind of what Dan was saying. And I was about to say, ask the question, one of the things that I do a lot of the time is I'm going to have a figure, or if I have a theme for the evening, once I've got the component parts introduced, I may use that figure slightly modified to an Alaman left in the choreography of the pattern before the singing call, which you chimed in, Don. And then Mickey, you said the third part, which was you build up the whole theme to get to, that's your 4th tip or your 5th tip, is that's your wow figure, that's going to be the big figure. And you've used all the tips to prepare them to do the component parts tip by tip, each one with a theme to build up to that point. So it was just almost like a progression of theming. It's 2 sessions in one, the way you guys answered that. So it was great.
Maybe it's a team of more than 9, but all of us combined here.
Wow, quiet.
Yeah.
Right. I've got one little anecdote it's really 9 people department. I got a frantic call last Wednesday from a very high profile caller who said, help, I just tested positive for COVID. My club goes on in 3 hours. I can't possibly cancel before then. Can you take them? And so I went down, and it was a mix of everything from SSD through Plus, and I was calling kind of blind to the floor. And at some point I did Alamo waves and everything fell apart. And so, okay, let's do Alamo waves slowly. And everything was really tough. And there was at least one dancer where I said, okay, no, stop right there. Don't go further until we do the next part. And the square fell apart. And I said, okay, now let's do this called timed precisely. And I was able to call it precisely, and the square that was having huge problems before when we were trying to do the walkthrough just flowed through it. And I was able to say, that's why it's always the caller's fault. And from that point on, I had the entire floor in my hand, because they really appreciated that connection and acknowledgement that how I called had so much impact on them. So anyway, that was my success last week.
That's good.
One of the things that I've thought about over the years, and I can't seem to collect enough examples of to make a presentation, but I think if done right, there's humor in choreography. And one example that I can think of right now is what Mickey was building up to or saying at one point. So just the straightforward, you do a figure on the singing call 3 times the same way, and the 4th time you just add a slight twist at the end, so they're expecting the first, and they all smile and giggle because they anticipated and they shouldn't have, even though your timing, dancers should never be able to anticipate. Your timing should give the call early enough so they don't, but we get them into the relaxed way of doing it 3 times and then trick them a little bit. But sometime I'd love to have people come up with their thoughts on different ways to add humor to the choreography they do.
Hey, cool.
Hey, Mickey, do you remember who was the caller that always used, he'd end a lot of his figures with swing till you've got the boys full, just the girls peel off, boys trade and promenade. It was always just the girls peel off. Because I just remember the one dance in Germany where they set it up and all the girls were in swimsuits underneath and all the tops went flying and he just stopped. He just lost it.
So the humor from the floor up to the caller.
Yeah, it's just that that's what. Yeah, it was a joke because he always called that, and didn't realize that he always called that. So they let him know that he always called that. Just the girls peel off, and they did.
Yeah, I had one with it in dancers. They play fun sometime. You call it spin the top. They all stood there and were shaking their thing, and I said, "That's spin the top. That's spin your top. That's something different." But they came up from the dancers. But yeah, so you always got to be careful with stuff like that. Yeah. If it comes from the dancers, it's okay. I wouldn't, as a caller, indicate it.
Well, I think we kind of filled that one pretty solidly and ran the conversation through, didn't we?
Good presentation, Mickey.
Yeah,
Really enjoyable.
Thank you a lot. And
yeah, you've given me a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
Did you get my message, Mickey?
No, not yet.
So was that Mark who just asked about that?
Yes.
We did earlier say Mickey has sent the PDF to Don. Don will send the PDF to me, and they'll.
Okay, sorry, I missed that part.
Yeah. I'll make sure I'll put it on Alamein Left as a link to download in the comments, and yes, the PDF will be available.
A question at the pre-session here. John mentioned, John left, that he had troubles clicking on the Newbie Callers and then finding the link. I was trying to cut down on the
Mhm.
size of the announcement, so there's not this constant big blue Zoom thing showing up on everybody's screen on every group they look at. Did anyone else have troubles finding the link, or?
It was the one that you posted in Square Dance Callers, and then there's comments on it. That link where it went back to Newbie Callers, that one's it didn't work. So if you were linking from one back to Newbie Callers, it didn't work. But the one in Newbie Callers did work. But I don't think it's you, Don, because I had the same problem last week on my session.
Yes.
The link worked for some, but it didn't work for others.
Because
I suspect it's where they're clicking on it or something, because I just went and clicked on it and got back to the Newbie Callers with the link in the comments. But I know that I'm also well trained about what to click on in Facebook things to get to where I want to go.
you wait till the cursor turns to a finger.
Yeah.
Well, you also have to be a member of Newbie Callers to be able to see that link.
Is Newbie
Interesting.
Callers a closed? Is Newbie Callers a closed group?
Newbie Callers should be a public group, so that should be visible to everybody, but maybe it shows a different default view.
Yeah, it wasn't visible to me.
Interesting.
Bad Facebook. Bad Facebook.
What I do with the links, since my wife has me relying on the computer calendar more and more, I put the link and the message for the Zoom in my calendar. And so when I open up Zoom, I just click on the calendar and click the link there, and it goes right to it.
Yeah, that's the same way I've been doing it since we started this. I've just got these sessions weekly in there, and I just open up the calendar and click join.
I've got a Mac sticky that has the link on it, and I just pull that open and join. But again,
You got a what?
Macs have things called stickies.
Oh,
Just little green men.
I thought you said something completely different. Well, you got a what? Sorry.
You're too much in the middle of the night, Derek. Anyway, what was I going to say?
Sorry, Don.
No,
Well, Facebook has been buggy here lately. You know, you get the little notification up there in the top of the web page, and it'll say there's a new post in Newbie Callers or Square Dance Callers, and I'll click on it, and it'll take me there to that group, but then it won't show me what the new post was. It's just blank. You scroll down, and there's nothing there. It's been doing that a lot for the last week or two.
the
At least
thing
that
is,
was a problem I've been having.
the reason, I mean, I have it on, sorry, Mel, a sticky, and who was it? I guess Steven said it was strictly in his calendar, and it is the same thing every time. But I'm trying to make it available to people that aren't regulars, so they can find us easily too and join in. And I guess the shortcut that I use isn't good enough at this point. Apparently you have to be a member, even though it's an open group of newbies, to have that work. But I'm trying to reduce the amount of boilerplate in the advertising. If any other suggestions on that are going to be welcomed. I don't want to have to put a link in every group that I post it in Newbie Callers, and then I share it to other Square Dance Caller related groups that I think might be interested. Sometimes it's using Taminations, sometimes it's Square Dance history. There's so many of us out there. This one should have gone to, but they don't have one for singing calls. They just have one for music, which is basically singing calls, but maybe I should have put it there.
Would you be able to use the tiny URL thing to make a tiny link instead of such a big link?
I could
Is that-
certainly set up a dummy small link off allemandleft.com or something. I think the concern isn't so much the length of the URL, because Facebook does a good job of scritching that down, as it is the big old blue Zoom preview thing that means absolutely nothing to anybody useful. Although maybe the thing to do is use that, do something that when Facebook grabs the preview images, looks one way, but when you click on it, does the redirect to the Zoom link.
Yeah, one of the things that's changed on Facebook, it used to be if you post a link, because I remember this on, you used to post a Zoom link and that big Zoom thing would come up, you'd click on that, and it would take you to the website to where you wanted to go. But now Zoom it takes you to Zoom as an advertisement. You've got to scroll down to the actual link, the hyperlink in blue, and click on that. That it's more of an advertising page than an active link to take you where you want to go when it says Zoom, that big box. Or it's the same with whenever you post a link, it takes you to that web page or a web page. So it's taking you to Zoom, the web page, rather than Zoom the session you want.
Now I haven't done it yet, but when I post that the videos are online and it brings up the OCCA logo.
Yeah, and it brings up
there's an
one of
option
the
there.
early
I haven't
videos.
done it yet for remove the preview.
Yeah.
So you can probably, not sure how much of it removes, but that could take away the big blue Zoom logo. Like I said, I've never tried it though.
Things to play with for next week.
I have never used the smaller URL thing, so I'm not sure quite how to work with that. But I guess I always just go to, it says you're invited to a Zoom thing, here's the link. But then it goes through and it says, this is a phone number in this area, and this is the phone number in this area, and this is the phone number. Do any of you ever use that, or just does the link alone work?
Some people do call in on the phone.
I haven't noticed anybody calling in for a while, but there was at least one person who complained early on when I didn't post all of the stuff, because for whatever reason the link wasn't working for them and they were typing in the numbers and the things into their computer.
Yeah, and there are some people periodically when they're driving, they have to put in the code, or they dial the phone, because they'll dial through the web on their vehicles, like through their phone on their vehicle, but they have to dial that, or they have to put in the access code so they can actually just tune in and listen in the vehicle. So,
Dan, is there any way that we could just see this for the information and just a link to a page you put up on your site?
I could certainly put a page up on alamanleft.com that had that, the details on it, and do some sort of something. Sure.
And you just put that up and forget it there, and we could just put a link to that?
Yeah, be a little concerned that when I have posted things that went too far widespread before, sometimes that makes us a bigger target for Zoom bombers. On the other hand, we haven't been Zoom bombed yet, fingers crossed. And when it happens, you boot the offender and lock the meeting down and carry on. So, we could do this. Yeah.
I think I mentioned the background here, but the administrator of one of the groups that I repost on started to hint at maybe this is an advertisement for the group rather than an advertisement for the session, and that I keep seeing this over and over again, and and then you repost it in this group that I'm also a member of, and I get tired of seeing it. Not saying don't post it on my thing, but consider a different way. And I thought that was a good idea, because I get tired of seeing these. Mel, I sent you an email on what did you think, and never got a response, which kind of surprised me.
I don't think I got an email from you.
Oh, I will resend it. It was a copy to this other gentleman and Dan, and he responded. The other guy responded to us, and I have only private message to him. But it was probably a week and a half ago or so. You remember when it was, Dan? Or
I
didn't you?
don't. I can go see if I can find that.
Well, I can just
Okay.
send it again, but it's unlike you to respond, Mel. So I was confused.
I'm just looking. The last email I got from you was on the 1st of May.
So I have one from Dawn to Mel and Joe Dane from Monday, July 4th at 3:41 p.m. And I'm never sure if that's my time or your time.
I've got it set up so mine shows local time, but
I think that's showing local time because Joe's is at 7:02 p.m. local time. Joe's response.
he responded before I before I sent it. Yes, of course.
Now, Don, the last email I got from you was on the temporary alternate getouts on the 1st of May.
Check your spam filters or something, because
I do all the time.
Dan, if you've got that handy, can you just forward it to Mel again?
Okay, and Wilkerson_Mel at outlook.com.
Yeah, or Wilkerso at bigpond.net.au. That one seems to work better.
Well, let's forward both these puppies.
I just had a look on my notes and I forgot something, which I.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, there was one singing call which I forgot to mention, where we have a short intro, middle break, and closer, which is Hooked on Elvis, for example, from Rhythm Records, where you have a side space grand square and then just a promenade. So I've seen callers trying to put a Four Ladies chain over and back in there and trying to wonder that they had to rush the dancers. And I just thought, if you listen to the song itself, you could get it, but then just check your singing call in the song. And yeah, this is one thing. And I think a Free Electric Band has similar restrictions in the middle break to it. Yeah. So you really got to know your song and listen carefully and practice. But I think one of the famous one is Hooked on Elvis from on Rhythm Records.
On a different note, but grand square in the middle of a thing and then promenading, even with a swingin' promenade, and then people getting home too soon. Hannah, have you had any response to Grand Tour other than your local dancers? Still got to push that, right?
Our local dancers love this call, so well, we do it a lot. I hope that somebody else is picking it up. It's a really nice one.
For those of you who don't know, there's a call called Grand Tour that's like a grand square, except leaves you on the opposite side of the square, so that if you do an Allemande and weave, it's a full promenade instead of a half promenade, and then wait for the caller to finish singing his lovely thing. And Hannah actually used that double in the middle break of a singing call she did recently on Rhythm International. And it was written specifically so that dancers could get a full promenade after a grand square type of thing. And Dick Ledger actually recorded the double version of it. It's on YouTube, so you do get to see the dancers dancing it, and it looks pretty nice. And I happen to be aware of it because I wrote it. But
So I don't know if any of you guys were aware, but at the Nationals, I was dragged into the competition square the last minute, and our square won first place.
Congratulations.
Yay. Yeah, they put me in sort of last minute, and Janet Zalstrom, her husband, was calling the competition. So normally he dances, so they threw me in there as well. I was dancing with Shauna Carey, and we also had Ted and Shelley Lizotte, and Barry Johnson and his wife, Anita, I believe, and then Tom Manning was dancing with Janet Zalstrom. So we had a reasonably stacked square.
Sounds like a stacked deck for sure. Speaking of you and National, how's COVID doing?
I'm doing fine. Occasionally I have a little bit of a coughing fit, but that's about it. I don't have any other symptoms, and I basically, after 4 days, I had a negative test, so it wasn't that bad.
Good, good.
Yeah, that's all thanks to the vaccine, I would bet. So otherwise, I'd probably be a whole lot sicker.
And again, we heard that you probably didn't catch it at the national, but going through Texas.
Well, that's what I presume, but I also heard that Ted also got COVID.
Really?
And yeah, and Bernice Davis, who is Tom Davis's wife, she also got it.
The caller I filled in for last week who was just back from nationals with COVID was Eric Hennerlau. So,
and Eric went to a movie with me the night before he left.
God, there we go. So that's an exposure.
Yeah, we went to go see The Fifth Element.
So
I know Godas had a cold coming back from National and the Roundelap, and also a dancer from Germany. Been together all the time, but they didn't have COVID. I guess it was due to the air conditioning. They said it was very cold at the convention hotel, and yeah, they all just were coughing, but they didn't have any COVID symptoms or negative tests.
well, Dan and I have been working very hard to make sure that you guys don't spread it amongst us here. So we tested that a few weeks ago with Dan coughing terribly for after he caught it.
Yeah, I just sent you a response there, Don. Joe mentioned something on that to me many months back, because I used to put it on there, and then I put a reminder on the Friday about the session on the Sunday.
And then on Sunday you'd give us a warning that now the room is open.
So now, and what I did is I only put the one announcement on, and then I announced the room being open in on the Australian pages and on Callers and Training and Newbie Callers. But every time I put a post with an update, I update the original post. So I'll take off what was there and put it. So there's only one post for me at a time. And I'll go back, and I went back on Joe's pages, and he was right. You know, when we hit about 60 sessions, as I scrolled down, all 60 of them were there. So I deleted all of the old posts. So there's only one post at a time.
So one of the reasons that I put it in one place, Newbie Callers, because that's where Dan started, is and then share it to others, is so that if I have to go back and make a change, it reflects instantly on all the other places I posted. But
yeah, I found that out when I put the wrong dates on once. I had to go back and change every one of them. And then Hannah pointed out I still had the wrong dates on. I had to go back and change them all again.
I do appreciate the feedback I get from people, because occasionally I'll put the wrong date at the wrong time.
The one thing that what surprised me, because I did suggest starting a caller training on Zoom Facebook page a year ago, and then again several months back. And for most response, that was back when we were getting like 100 people in these sessions. They says, we belong to so many Facebook pages on Zoom. We don't want one more. It's in Newbie Callers. It's in the ones I go to. I don't even go to Newbie Callers. I go to Callers and Training, or I go to Square Dance Callers. That's the only one I go to. I've gotten rid of all the other ones that they just can't keep up.
Well, that's why I said in the email I sent you, I suggested that maybe we make one for the two of us that just has the link and the typical time, and never post in it. Just share that in the notes of the others that go here if you want to find out where we are. And
when you don't use one, though, it tends to disappear off your radar, and then you got to go hunting for it.
Well, as we just learned, if you're not a member of that other one, you're not gonna be able to get the link from there anyway. So that
true enough. But no, I like I said, I went through and I started editing, and then I just, when I post each week, or when I do post, I delete the previous one, so that there's only one there. And then I only put the Zoom room open in Callers and Training and Newbie Callers. just to open up, because sometimes I'll open an hour early, sometimes 2 hours early. It depends if I go to bed after your session or not. And Joe hasn't said anything. He hasn't said anything about it for over a year now.
On Joe's point, and I thought I was doing it, but tried harder this week. When I see your ads, I have to go 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down to see what topic you're working on this week.
It should be the line. It should be 3 lines displayed, which is the Zoom session date and topic. Is that not doing that?
Maybe I don't scan correctly. I don't know. But I've, as of this week, tried to start with topic. And as actually before even Joe, I would put, caller training session, one-liner of the topic, and then more details down below. I don't know. We seem to have the same faces every time, which is great. I'd like to see you guys coming back, but I'd love to see more people also, because we have such wonderful things to say.
Yeah.
88 sessions, guys. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And more to come. Somebody's sharing his screen.
Can you see that?
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. I think the Don's complaint is that the topic isn't visible on those 2 lines.
It's usually 3 lines that show, and it would be caller training session, date, and topic, and who's presenting. Is that like, you notice down here you got 3 lines that show and 3 lines that show? This is yours. And that to me, that's not an invasive. Where's yours for today? Sorry, I'm just scrolling up to yours, wherever it is.
Yeah, so I'm only
That's
seeing 2 lines on my look here. I see that. Well, that's the reminder, no Ash series. Never mind. That's not useful. And that because you delete the old ones, there's probably not an old one there. So,
well, I'll hang on a sec. I'll put one in there. Just.
Oh, here we go. Yeah. Okay. So I see it on this one. Yeah, the one from June 10th in Newbie Callers.
Did I not delete that?
All the content is there. Yeah, I really like that preview. So yeah, this is if you I can share this if you want, but
I'm trying to stop sharing. I lost my screen. So
can
you stop my share?
Yes. Thank you. I have the power.
Thank you. I couldn't get there. The whole thing had disappeared on me.
Here we go.
Yes, Steve. I'm not doing a Zoom session today.
So yeah, there's the
and Mark is going to be doing it next. Yeah, that's what should be coming up on mine is the 3 lines, and hopefully the 4th one, and then it says check time zones below.
Okay, and now I have to find the stop share button on my shared screen, which is difficult. Okay, we're back.
Well, while we're talking about the technical mechanics of doing these things, we haven't said this in a while, but Mark just walked away.
Now's a good time to compliment him.
Thank you so much for posting the Orange County thing and summarizing the links to all these things. That's a great, when people ask me, well, I hadn't heard of these, what can I see? That's the place I send them.
Yeah, I keep meaning to go back and do essentially what he's done, and I still haven't gotten to that. And it's been several months since I first promised it.
Well, when you go back and you look at there's what do you got on there now? About 300 different sessions, Mark?
Like it's a lot. I haven't counted in a long time.
It's a lot. Categorizing. It's not only the video, the links, the hosting, but all of the supporting material. Like Mickey's, your recording will be up there, but so will a copy of the material, the links, what it's about, the dates.
I have to, to the point, I need another page. I need to split up this group and your group so they each have their own page. But to do that, I'm out of pages. I have to upgrade my service, and I really don't want to spend any more money because this is all out of my pocket.
Yeah.
I was just thinking before you mentioned that, Mark, that a suggestion um, and a request on my part is at the top of your page, you write down the name of the group you're working with, and when you click on a link there, it just takes you further down the page.
I've been trying to figure out how to do that, and with the website editor that they give you, I cannot find any way of doing that. I've seen that before. You can click, okay, like I can click on Don Beck, and boom,
Yeah.
and take you halfway down the page to where yours start. But I can't figure out how to do that.
Huh.
I don't see any options or anything for that.
What are you using? Not that I'll be able to help.
I'm on iPage, whatever their website editor is that they give you with iPage.
Okay.
I know how to do that in raw HTML, but that doesn't help you on iPage. But in raw HTML, you insert an anchor and you give it a name. And then from the link, you insert an anchor, and the href has a hash sign and then that name.
Yeah, but I don't know how to do the raw HTML in iPage.
Yeah, well, that's why
I
I
used
said
to do that on my
anchor,
own
because
personal websites back in the day, but nowadays with these services, the
yeah,
stuff they give you, it's like using an iPhone. You know?
Yep.
It's website editing for dummies that gives you limited stuff you can do.
yeah.
Well, on the iPhone, it depends on which finger you use.
But what I did want to ask, I've thought about it before, but we were worried about, this is a long time ago, we were worried about getting Zoom bombed. But you guys brought this up about, a lot of people do go there and watch the videos and check and stuff. I could put there at the top of the page the link to join the meetings, but that's opening it to the public.
Yeah.
So that's why we never wanted to do it in the past, but
Yeah.
if you
Well,
guys
we
decide you
talked
want to do
about
that,
it that
I'll do
one
that.
time, and we did have people come in and Zoom bomb us, which was real
Very
interesting, that one
interesting
session.
topics.
I can't remember, Mark, whether you have at the top. These are the 3 sessions. I think it's just 3 now. 3 sessions that are here. Scroll down to look at this one, or scroll down to see that one.
Well, in reality, it's just these 2 sessions.
Well, don't you still have
Mel's and your guys's?
Don't you still have links to the COVID group?
The class sessions.
The GSI?
Yeah.
Yeah, that down at the bottom of the page is a link to take you to their website where the videos are at. I don't have the actual sessions on there because they kept all their stuff private. I have copies of it, but because they kept their stuff private to their website, I don't want to put them on my website.
I've just started maybe 3-4 weeks ago announcing our thing on their website also, and their admin goes through and says, yeah, this is okay, and I'll put it out here. So I guess they still have I'm hoping they still have people listening. Actually, it's curious. I'm curious what websites people use. Am I spreading them out in the right place or what have you? How many are going to Newbie? How many are there? Are 2 called Square Dance Callers. One's private, one's public, and I don't know who goes to which, but
They don't all have the same following, because I got it on Square Dance Callers. I said, which one? Oh, there's 2 of them.
yeah.
So yeah. Mark is going to be hosting for me next week. As I said earlier, I'm going to be deployed up dealing with the Varroa mite and whatnot, and the bees here in Australia. So Mark, if I get a chance, I'll put the notification in, but I was thinking if you're going to be setting up the session, it'd probably be better if you put the notification in the Newbie Callers, the Callers in Training, and the link. I don't know if you can use my active link.
That's something I was wondering about. If we can, I don't know if I can fire up your meeting. I remember you setting me up in Zoom back when we first started. with my email address and everything, but I don't know if I can I can't remember if I can actually start your meeting.
Yeah, I don't know anymore because I use the same link as well. If I can, we'll have to set that up sometime later today or something if we get a chance, and just see if we can do that.
Yeah, just do a test meeting.
I think you've done it once when you had your surgery, when Mark was running the session and opened up the room.
Yeah, he's done a couple, but I think he set his own session up on that, didn't you?
Yeah, we shared on Facebook and everything. It was my link for my hosting. It was a different link. And there were people that took a while to figure that out. They had to go, but they went to join the meeting from their calendar and it didn't work. And then they had to go back into Facebook. Oh, and they clicked it there and then it worked. And what it was is it was two different meetings.
I have a question for Dan
Yes.
regarding Square Desk.
Take one.
Yeah.
Take one with cheese.
If you push the Control and L, you get the loop, right?
You said you only had 3 pieces.
Yeah, or certainly you can configure it that way.
And then you have an ending bar and a beginning bar.
Right.
Are there possibilities of moving the bars?
Yeah. If you go to the lyrics tab, you can set the in and out point with the start and end buttons, or fine tune them.
Is that independent on each song?
Yes.
Good.
Okay, how can you do that?
Hang on one moment. Let me see if I've got a working Square Desk on this computer. Oh, no, I did not mean to do that. Where's my Square Desk? There is my Square Desk. I've been using Zoom for how long, and I'm still having trouble navigating the damn thing. Anyway, here we are. So if we switch to patter, switch to like Axel F, and then go to the patter tab, the start loop and end loop buttons here.
Okay.
When you're playing, you can obviously click that, or you can type in a number there in either the start or the end.
Okay. But you couldn't move like a second wise or
Well, so let's move this a second over.
you would have to print it in there.
Yeah, we don't have like a, a slide it this way or that way arrow button. We just have a, and I don't think clicking just works for the slider. But, if you're playing, and I didn't share audio, so I don't think this is going to actually play. Anyway, that is, trust me, this is playing. If I click,
we hear it.
You can hear it.
Okay. So I will match start loop now. So that puts the start loop there.
Okay.
So let's go back to 13 or wherever that was, because now I'm hosed.
It'd be easier if we could push the bar, right?
I think that we were trying to figure out how to do, if you click here, something. Well, so you can do micro adjustments with these little buttons, but that's thousandths of a second, so that's a little tight. Yeah, I need to get back to where I've got a machine that can build this again, so that I can make changes to it, especially since Mike has torn it all apart for the new Mac M1s.
Okay. Because I'm absolutely in using Square Desk only right now, and then.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing, a question I have is when loading or saving a playlist.
Yeah.
Or using a used playlist. Let's say like whatever Elvis or whatever Johnny Cash or whatever.
Sure.
And you have another song to add to it. That's not possible, right?
I believe that once you load it, you can edit it as you want to, and then save it. And
yeah, but you have to save it again. It's not just like just save it.
But Mike, I saw the bug reports come across, the bug notifications come across. Mike just did a lot of changing on playlists, I should suggest that to him. I'll hit him up and ask, because I like that idea of like you're loading a playlist context and you just edit that playlist context and you don't have
Like
to
you
worry
have
about
you
saving.
Elvis, you got 15 songs in there. Now you got another one, and just add 16 and just save it, and you've got 16 in there, and do not have to save it as and delete the other one or whatever.
Right. Yeah. And similarly, we know that for our save and save as model for our cue sheets is definitely broken. We have both lost edits when we should not have lost edits.
Okay.
So yeah, good idea. I will mention that to Mike, and once again see if I can get back to the point where I can where I can build my own Square Desk, because I never got it building on the Mac and my Linux machines died, and I have not, because of COVID, gotten a new Linux machine yet.
And whenever the things work and they're out for updating, how can I update my Square Desk without losing all the files and stuff like that?
So the database that Square Desk uses is stored in your music folder, so you should never lose that. That's in your music folder, and yeah, it'll stay with your music.
Oh, okay. But do I have to reinstall or delete the old one, or will that go automatically?
I think it's, I mostly do this building from source. But I think that if you just reinstall, it'll just pick it up. So
Okay.
on the Mac, for instance, you get that kind of drag this into the applications folder, and it'll ask if you want to create a new one or delete the old or overwrite the old one. Just overwrite the old one and you're fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Glad I could assist.
Dan, speaking of playlists,
Yes.
but not Square Desk, I understand, although I haven't explored it yet, that you can create YouTube playlists.
Yes.
And because generally I don't go to Mark's page to look for stuff that we've done. I go to yours and then scroll down, past all your local political stuff and till I find ours, the one I'm looking
Yes.
for. But is it possible that you could make a playlist of things on yours that put all of ours in one place?
In fact, they are all in a playlist called Newbie Callers Facebook chats, or
Yeah.
Newbie Callers Zoom chats. I'm not sure how you necessarily find that from my YouTube page, but they are there. If you go to Dan Like and click on playlists, and then click, boy, this is annoying as hell. I've created it.
I don't have an annoying as hell button to click on.
Well, I do.
I have one. It's right next to the any key.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you go to youtube.com/Dan Like.
Okay, I'm heading there. Hang on. YouTube.
And you might want to share while you do this, because what you see and what I see are different because I'm logged in.
Well,
I mean, you might not want to share because sometimes the auto suggest in your browser is kind of,
Okay, so I went to YouTube. Now I'm searching for Dan Like.
I just do youtube.com/Dan Like. That should pull up my page directly.
/Dan LIKE. Would have been quicker the other way because
Okay. I'm sorry, my bad.
All right, got it.
Okay, so it says there's a home, videos, playlist, channels, and about tab there.
Yes.
If you click on the playlists tab, on mine it probably says Redwoods, Rick Hampton, Chicken Plucker.
Yep.
Newbie Callers Zoom, or Know Before You Grow, Newbie Callers Zoom chats.
Yeah.
The Newbie Callers Zoom chats is the one, and I see 71 videos in there.
Wait, before you spend a bunch of money on cookware, let me tell you about Made In. We cut out.
Now I get it.
Wait.
Sorry about that.
So yeah.
So how do I create I've been wanting to do playlists for my mental image classes.
So I think that when you edit it, there's the option to put in playlists. What I see is that when I upload it on that first page, about midway down the list of options, there's an add to playlist
Okay.
setting.
Yeah, one of my current students has been keeping a playlist of all the individual links I've been sending, and I've been thinking of doing that for each of the 6 groups I've done, and eventually sending that out. So you'll have a playlist of all the tapes of the session you were in, and one for you, Hannah, and Lars. Sounded like a good idea. I'm also, per the request of somebody, this group, trying to create a summary of rules that won't help anybody that hasn't taken the course, but will be a good reminder for those that have. And because it goes right into the generalized instead of building to them, it'll be a much shorter, quick review to look at it. Fun projects that I have, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Folks,
All right. Well,
I will
have
have
a
to leave.
yeah,
I have
whole
to
bunch of
run.
projects to do. Thank you for the conversations, and we'll see y'all next week, I guess.
Sounds like a plan.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you, Mickey. Thank you,
Y'all
Don.
take care. Thanks.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.